Hi there, I'm Phil Cole, and welcome to another episode of the KLAS Solutions Dental Education Podcast, the podcast where we share knowledge and experience to provide value to you and your dental practice. So if you've ever said, it's just so hard to find good people, I can say that you're definitely not alone, and you're exactly who this episode is for. And today we're going to be diving into what I call one of the biggest drivers of practice success, and that's your team. Not your logo, not your equipment, it's your people. We're talking hiring, training, leading, and keeping a team that's all in on your vision. You know, I have spent 24 years plus in this industry, and I've seen practices sink or soar based on the strength of the people that they surround themselves with. So let's walk through how to build your dream team, if you want to call it that, without the stress. So first of all, let's kick this off with the hiring mindset. I mean, too many doctors approach hiring like this. I need someone now. Anyone who can answer the phones is good enough for me. I just can't have anything any more days where I don't have somebody. I just need a butt in the seats. So building a dream team, it doesn't, I would say, start with the panic button. It starts with purpose. And probably the reason why you're trying to fill that seat is because of exactly the thought process and the comments that you just heard me make, because that resounded to the team, and that's what got you to where you're at now. So let's start it off with purpose first. Here's what I want you to think about before you even post a job. And that is, what kind of person fits the culture that you want to build? That to me is, it's once again, let me say that. What type of person fits the culture that you want to build? Not what butt is going to fit this seat, because any butt can. But when you base the practice off the culture that you want to portray to your patients, portray to the community and stuff, that culture then takes your practice to a whole nother level. The other thing is too, is, you know, we talk about vision. And the other thing that I would say is what we preach, core values. So there's the culture, then there's the core values too. And so my question, or the next question, would be, what values, what core values are just non-negotiable? And when I say core values, we teach 5 behaviors here at KLAS Solutions. And when doing core values, we want to make sure that you understand that those core values that typically are minimum 3, maximum 6, are core values that you live by. Those core values start to and shape the culture of your practice. And so if you have a core value that I feel is possibly non-negotiable, maybe rethink it. Is it something that is negotiable, or it's all core values are non-negotiable? And then I think last but not least is another gigantic one, and that is are you hiring for skills, or are you hiring for attitude? Now, just hang on a second and let me just tell you this story. So we worked with a doctor who kept hiring front desk team members with impeccable resumes, right? Every time you saw it, you're, a normal person, maybe I shouldn't say normal person, but a person says, yeah, I mean, their resume is solid. I got to hire this one. But then with this doctor, they only would last 4 to 6 months. And the frustration just continued to just go over and over. And it started to really weigh on him. But after we got involved and started doing some investigation, turns out he wasn't hiring. He was hiring on skill, and he wasn't hiring on culture or core values. Some people call it personality. Okay, you're right. They got to have the right personality, but that personality doesn't fit with the core values of the practice and what you're trying to accomplish. And so that was not it. It was strictly looking at the resume and saying that this is it. Indeed, these hiring places, they're perfect at that, right? They tell you this is impeccable, it's hitting this, and they got these little grading scales and all this other stuff. But they never talk about you looking at what is this person going to do when it comes to the culture of my practice. So once he shifted to looking for communication skills, do they have warmth in their body? You know what I mean? Are they going to make the patients feel as though they're coming into maybe their home per se and not feel like they're coming into a clinic, And then the other thing is what I think is just gigantic is, are they coachable? Is there coachability in this person? So with that, his team, without that, and you're just looking at skills, his team was stuck. And his patients started noticing it because he was getting comments of like, Sally's gone and now Becky's gone. And I see that, Dawn's gone. And they start naming all these people and that's it. Once he changed, now that team member has been there and has remained there for years. So what I would say is when you're doing interviews, the big thing to me is use value-based interview. Ask them questions more than tell them what the practice is about. Get a good feel for them. Ask them just simple questions like, what does a good day feel like for you? When you come into this practice and you're working here, what do you want a good day to feel like to you? Or what is your vision, or how do you plan on handling unhappy patients? You'll get way more insight when just asking about experiences they've had and how they've handled them, or creating your own examples and asking them how they would handle it. And once you see that, you'll once again see clearly the difference between hiring based off of skills versus off of the values, the culture per se. Okay, so now let's look at training that actually works. So let's say you made that great hire. So the question is, now what? This is where a lot of practices drop the ball. They think that the new hire will just figure it out. And I use that phrase because over the years, I've heard this, and if you talk to any of my other coaches, they will tell you they've heard this phrase all the time. When you ask them certain questions, stuff, well, I don't know. I just thought they would figure it out. I mean, they worked at 3 other places, so I thought they would just figure it out. That's not how you build excellence. Building a dream team, if that's what you want, and that's what you should be trying to attain, is building structure or systems. that's what it's all about. You know, I was just talking to somebody and they were saying, yeah, they were talking about their work and they said, man, I tell you, it was just kind of didn't really know what was going on. And I was kind of getting to the point where I was thinking about leaving because it was just everything is just kind of a rat race, you know? And he said, all of a sudden they brought in this coach or this consultant and they put in these different things and the owner really got ripped in front of us and stuff pretty hard. And it was kind of fun to watch that, you know, because he's normally ripping on us and he got a rip. And I sit there and I thought, you know, it cracked me up that he said that, because then I sit there and no more than that night I sat down and it was 12:30 at night and I wasn't ready to go to bed. And I'm flicking through channels and, oh, there's Bar Rescue. And then I turn it on and, you know, you got John Taffer ripping into this bar owner. And what does he say? Your team is in disarray. They don't know what they're doing and they have no systems. There's no structure to this. You're just allowing them to do whatever you want. And then a couple days later, you know, I love cooking and turn on a cooking show. I can't think of it off the top of my head, which has the restaurant remake thing where he brings the sledgehammer in. And he sits down with them after he watches everything, goes back through the kitchen. Gordon Ramsay does the same thing with his kitchen nightmares. And it's like you have no systems. You have no structure to this restaurant. You do whatever you want as an owner and you just expect them. And so here's 3 shows that I just name off. You probably watched every one of them. And it's funny because I look at it going, okay, they're saying exactly what every business owner needs to know, what every business owner should do. And that is making sure that you have good systems in place, because that's what takes the stress away. That's what allows you to be a business owner and love being a business owner. And one of the biggest gripes that we hear from dentists all the time is just, you know what, just get me out of here. I don't want to be an owner anymore. I just want to do dentistry. Well, it's very simple and it can be done with that structure and that system. So here's just some onboarding that should be included. Like 1, have a clear first week plan. Who are they going to shadow? What systems are they going to learn first week, second week, third week? Because you might be hiring somebody that worked at 3 different practices, but all 3 of those practices may not have had any systems. They may have done the same thing. Those 3 doctors could have had the same phrase. And that's just, you know, they figured it out. And so they worked at those 3 practices for the last 20 years, doing exactly what you will do if you're not prepared. And that is just having them figure it out. And maybe writing systems for your practice that you don't want or you don't even agree with, but you're not paying attention to it until it's too late. You know, we preach it all the time. Protocols, systems, you know, I know they're obvious ones, but it's so amazing to walk in. And I just talked to a doctor in Florida and I said, you know, the office manager is not working out. Got one in Texas, same thing. Office manager / you know, head front office it's just not working out. They're not going anywhere where I want them to. I seem like I'm always cleaning up their messes and blah blah blah. And they're not doing the things that I want them to do. So first question I always ask is, so do you have clear written protocols? And do you have written procedures, like job descriptions? Like, well, and then the answer is typically no. I don't. Why do I need job descriptions? I mean, she's in charge of insurance. I mean, so she should take care of insurance. That's not, there's a lot of things that go on with dealing with insurances. There's a lot of things going on if you're an office manager. There's a lot of things going on if you're a receptionist. And so without having written procedures, clear job descriptions and stuff, once again, we're going right back to what I talked about, and that's just figure it out. And that's what you're expecting them to do. And then daily check-ins for the first couple weeks. I mean, I get doctors that don't do check-ins, period. But when you have a new hire, a daily check-in and just come on in. How was the day, right? That simple reinforcement to allow them to have that. We've helped an office build like a welcome pack with all the team bios, with team picture, with their names and so forth. We've done, had a tour scripted out, how to answer phones. Here's the thing. When I say answer the phones, it just pops in my head that everybody's like, well, no kidding. You're working for Dr. Smith. So of course you're going to answer the phone, Dr. Smith. That's not it. What happens if it's Premier Dental, Dr. Smith's office, and the patients for the last 20 years have been used to you answering the phone. Thank you for calling Premier Dental. How can we assist you? Whatever. And this person all of a sudden starts saying Dr. Smith and Premier Dental. It's just totally different, right? Because you didn't have that. So once again, it's just answering the phones. How to restock the rooms and how to restock the sterilization area and stuff, and with a new hire, with an assistant, whatever the case may be. The new hire, says, this is the first office where I didn't feel lost. So once we created that, I guess back to that welcome packet, once we created that and everything, and they hired someone, that's what the answer was. Because we went in and we just asked, how's it going? We did our check. And that was their answer. This is the first office where I didn't feel lost. Like, these guys have their I think that was the next phrase. Like, these guys have their crap together. Like, I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. So, there's all kinds of different methods now. Use video for training. Like, when you're going to sit there and do when you're scheduling, to have someone with the other front office, have them with the phone. Just record while you're scheduling. When you're doing a reception call, hit record on your phone and just record how you answered the phone. All those kind of things, so that you can put them in and say, hey, listen to these. These are labeled here. You hear, and here you go, right? No different than in the back. Have an assistant's handbook. So when you hire a new assistant, the assistant knows that this is how the crown, you take a picture. This is how the crown's tub is set up, or cassettes are. Here's for, amalgam. Here's for composite. Whatever the case may be, it's there, clear, easy for them to be able to learn quickly, do it according to the way that you want it done, and it's something that can be reused over and over again with new people. But when they're hired, it's also keeping them on the same track. Everybody's on the same page. All right, so now it's time to talk, and this one's always going to be the one that no one likes, but now it's time to talk leadership. And I want to make something very clear. Leadership doesn't mean that you have to have all the answers. It does mean that you need to create clarity. You need to be consistent and have consistency in the office, and you gotta care. I'll tell you, one of the books that I think everybody that's listening to, get it, The Servant Leader, read it, because I'll explain here in a little bit. But here's what strong leadership looks like when it's in a dental practice. Having weekly huddles that don't suck. And I know what some of the doctors that may be listening to this podcast are going to sit there and say, I don't believe in huddles. Well, you're wrong, because weekly huddles are a must. I mean, daily huddles, I should say, but weekly huddles to do a business, to review for the week is just as important. But daily huddles, don't have them suck. When we talk to people about, we used to do huddles. But when we used to do huddles, we did this, and then there were some times where doctors I hear and they're like, well, I used to do weekly or daily huddle. I don't know why I keep saying weekly, but daily huddles. But the problem with it is they kept getting too long. They were going 40, 45 minutes. Holy crap. Like, what the heck are you doing? And what are you going over that's going to take that long? You know, the other one that I would say that I think is so important, this is that culture thing again. But as a leader, you have to be invested in your team. So being clear about your expectations and living them up living them yourself to the team is just as important. And then, once again, the other thing that I would say is a third one is regular one-on-ones with your team. I don't care if it's, 5 minutes, a week, 5 minutes a month, just a quick, hey, can you come in my office real quick? How's things going? Right? What do you think I could do to make your job easier? Or I see you seem like you're a little off today. Is there anything I can do to help you? These are huge, monumental things, because that is where that culture, that's where now if we got my team and leadership coach, Ryan Hill, to start talking about the 5 behaviors, that's where you just start breaking down the trust and the conflict and all the other things. And you just are building in that. When you have that, those results are just going to happen. And so I think it's important for that. One doctor we coached was always frustrated with her assistant because she was always running late. But then I asked her if they'd ever sat down and talked about it. Why is she showing up late? And she said, well, no, I don't think that's necessary. She should just show up. And so we just built kind of a one-on-one schedule and those first couple, what to do and what to get going and stuff. And within 2 months, the assistant started showing up on time, kept thanking her for her feedback, and never had to, per se, get on her, is what she had mentioned to me is well, I'm not the person that's going to get on her. Okay, handle it though in a leadership fashion. And guess what? Now you have someone that's shown up on time and is thankful to be there. So once again, I think it's building that trust. And once you build that trust and you break down those barriers, then you don't have to ask yourself, the questions of, or maybe I shouldn't say questions, the comments I get of is, well, that's what I pay him for. But instead, when you are giving them the opportunity to see you and that you care about them, man, a whole different, it's just gold. It's just gold. And now they're ready to, walk a mile for you instead of walking out the door on you. And I would say last is, keeping a team happy keeps a team staying. Retention is where the magic happens. Hiring, there's no doubt about it. Hiring is hard, especially nowadays. Keeping great people, though, is even harder. And it's not about the money. If you've listened to these podcasts, you have heard stats that I've thrown out and different things like that. And it continues. 2025, just met with a doctor that we're going to do some coaching for. And what did it come down to is the team, having a hard time with the team and taking care of some of these things. And what ended up happening with this whole conversation, what ended up being the fact that, the team is just not, enjoyable. Let's put it that way. The team's not enjoyable because they, are just kind of doing their own thing. Well, once again, let's look back at, do you have a team that had culture? Well, when I bought the practice, the doctor said that they were great. I was going to love this team, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, where did it get lost? And where I will always say, and this is the thing that I think that dentists just never want to face, and I shouldn't just say dentists, any business owner, because it's tough to look yourself in the mirror and then sit there and see that it's me. Like, I'm the problem. But I will tell you, going back to what I was discussing, is it's not about the money. It's about the appreciation. It's about having systems in place. Whenever we come across a team and a practice that's just humming and everything, I will always tell you the leadership is fantastic. Everybody you talk to, when we do our surveys with our coaching, every team member says communication, appreciation always is there. Attaboys. I always say that. Attaboys. Make your team feel appreciated. Because when they do something wrong, then you can talk to them and they can understand way more clearly. But when they're doing good and they never hear it, it's no different than if you just had constant complaining patients. When you get that one patient that sits there and says, "Doctor, I drive an hour to see you just because of how good you make me feel and stuff. Tell me how that feels," versus the other 6 or 8 patients that day that sit there and groaned and moaned about you and maybe how the office looks and how the phone was answered, blah, blah, blah. You feel it yourself. So feeling appreciated is a big deal. I mean, if you got lockers, quick and easy, end of each month, or it doesn't even have to be each month, but just every once in a while, handwritten note. Thank you so much for being a part of my team and making this practice successful. Boom, throw it in their locker, tape it to their locker, whatever the case may be. That handwritten note's going to go a heck of a lot farther than a bonus. And I know that some of the doctors that are listening are going to sit there and say, baloney. I got people that all they would want is raise after raise after raise. And I can guarantee you every time we ask those people, why were you asking for a raise? Why were you asking for a raise? Because I didn't feel appreciated. So another one, having a say in decisions. If you're going to want a strong team, listen to your team. When you have those morning huddles, we coached a 2-doctor practice, and it was so funny. They were going to do huddles. They agreed with it, blah blah blah, and it was 2-3 months into the coaching, and we're like, you can't come into the morning huddle and just boss people around. It's the time for people to have their voice. Would not listen. No, they need to do what I tell them to do or what we tell them to do. That kind of a morning huddle is not going to work. And then career growth. Once again, another big topic of why you have team members that stay, team members that are long-term team members, because career growth. Giving them maybe the opportunity to go up into a leadership opportunity, or, allowing them to go to CEs and stuff. It's a big difference. There was a hygienist that I knew that was ready to quit. She just said, I feel stuck here. And I feel like just unseen. No matter what I do, doesn't matter, not going to make a difference. And her doc started asking her for input in meetings. And then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue, paid for laser certification. Now, you talk to her, what happened? He ended up deciding to listen to somebody, a little birdie in the ear that told him what he needed to do. And she's now 3 years later there and happens to be the number one referral source for new patients. So, I cannot emphasize enough that keeping a team or the retention is based off of, once again, the culture of the practice. Celebrate work anniversaries. It's a small touch, but it shows your team that you care, that you see them, that you value them, and you value their time. All right, so here's a quick recap. Hires. Hire for value, hire for culture. Do not just hire based on assumption or resume. Lead consistently, lead with caring, even when it's uncomfortable. Once again, get the book the 5 Dysfunctions, or get the Servant Leader. If you read the book, The Servant Leader, and you sit there and say, I don't agree with this, you're going to have a tough time, because the Servant Leader shows how you become the servant first as a leader. And it is an amazing book. 5 Dysfunctions. Read that book. Call Ryan Hill on the 5 Behavior 2-day course that we teach and see the difference that it makes. Invest. So in other words, not only, lead consistently, lead, and even though it's uncomfortable, but invest in your people. Invest in your people, because here's the thing is, when you invest in your people, they are going to then in return invest in your practice. And last but not least, once again, train with intention, train with the core values in mind, train so that everybody that steps in has exactly what they need and knows exactly what the systems are and how to run that practice. I would say I'll give you an action item step for this week. This is going to make a bunch of you uncomfortable, and some of you are going to say, but you know what, I already do that, and I don't need to do that. You know what? If you already do it, guess what? Do it a second time, because 2 times is just going to be better than 1 time. For those of you who feel uncomfortable about it, this is your chance. This is your chance to feel outside the box. Get the crawly skin and ignore it and take the next step. But hold a 15 minutes. I'll go 10. Hold a 10-minute check-in with each team member this week. Just ask them how they're doing, what's working, what's frustrating you, and be willing to hear them and not get mad at them if it's about you. You'll be shocked what you're going to learn, and you'll be shocked at what will happen when you see that maybe there's more than one person feeling the same way, and it's going to help you to be able to look and see what I need to fix. What do I need to get this thing, my practice, primed and running on all cylinders? If you're thinking I need help building a team like this, then reach out to KLAS Solutions. Reach out to us. We've helped practices all over the country putting systems in place to build and train high-performing teams. Just visit www.classolutions.com. Let's chat. Call us. Email us. Let's just talk and see what you have going on in your practice. With that, I want to say, I know this was a long one, and sometimes maybe this podcast made you feel a little uncomfortable, but thanks for hanging out with us today. Hit subscribe, leave a review if you liked it, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Take care and keep building that dream practice.